Ayo, GM, everybody. Happy Tuesday. What a change of events from last week to this week. Everything is pumping out of their mind. There's a 100 ETH V1 punk sale. Was that last night? We got Mr. 703 resurfacing, wrapping a bunch of the OG vintage V1 punks. What a time to be alive. But what is more iconic than Adam and internet problems? GM to you, bro.
What's up, man? I am expecting the new internet here in Costa Rica this week, man. I ordered the 200 meg or whatever, 200 gig up or down. So the super high end of the best fiber I can get is coming later this week. But yeah, just on self-service right now, man. But we're hanging in there. But what a crazy week for punks, man. Are we back? I don't know. I'd love to talk about it.
Are we back? That is Chris. What's good, GM, bro? What an amazing space today.
GM, perfectly timed. I think Cyborg has had his hands full. I don't think he's able to breathe with all the V1 Punk sales. So these things are going nuts. The space is on fire. Look at this purple crowd. We're looking at a good day. Let's get into it.
Good day. Sean, what's good, bro? It's been probably like a year since last time we've talked, man. How you been?
I've been fantastic. So great to be here. It's been busy. A year feels like minutes, but also like 10 years. It's one of those crazy things, especially the last couple of days. All of a sudden it's like, oh wait, I haven't slept in days again. That's familiar.
Yeah, no kidding. I woke up at like 5 o'clock this morning from all the pinging, and I was like, "Oh man, I think we are back to this again." Adam, man, I'll let you take the reins on this one. Where would you like to dive into first? Do we want to go into the history, or do we want to go into kind of where we are today?
It's interesting. You know, I think we've done probably enough spaces on the history. You know, I think you know, the kind of broader, you know, crypto space is kind of getting on board with what V1s kind of represent, which I think is awesome. Like, this is the change that kind of all of us in the historic NFT community wanted to see, right? Which is just this recognition of, hey, this is the first contract, and, you know, whatever its value may be, you know, we'll let collectors decide, but certainly a cool, really, really cool part of not only NFT history, but crypto history, and obviously CryptoPunk history. So I think people can look back on those different podcasts that we've all done to learn more about that. But I'd like to talk more about kind of what's happening today. Seeing, you know, all the ones that are getting wrapped. I'd love just a little update on that. If somebody on stage, maybe Sean wants to take that, just giving kind of an update on where kind of the market is for V1s, as far as, like, you know, how many are currently wrapped, you know, just kind of where market conditions kind of right now for V1 punks.
You know, I'm gonna let Frank talk more about markets, because markets isn't really my thing. I mean, I like that there's lots of punks and everything, but I don't pay too much attention to like market details so much.
Frank, you're up to bat.
Yeah, I got the hot ball here. Well, well, I think it's a little bit, yeah. A lot of events are coming together, and those events, they're just making a new market for them. The market was always there for them, but yeah, now suddenly the floor almost doubled. I just checked just before the spaces, floor almost doubled in like 2-3 days. And it is, yeah, we saw that ape sale of 100 ETH. We also saw that zombie V2 sale. That of course puts a light on CryptoPunks. Then Mr. 703 that drops out of nowhere and says, "Oh, I'm going to wrap my whole stack," which basically will push the supply to almost 5K, which is half of the supply. Suddenly some broker drops into the Discord and says, "Oh, I have a client and I want to buy 50, but I want to do some OTC deals." And you know, all these events, they suddenly push that market. And yeah, of course, when the market gets pushed, it's all over Twitter, and new people see it. And I think that is a little bit what is happening right now. A lot of new people suddenly realize, oh, wow, these V1s, they have actually a pretty cool narrative. Let's invest in them.
Yeah, as we look today, the floor is 5.25 ETH. There's 38,010 ETH in historical volume, 1,026 unique owners on the wrapper, and 4,687 total wrapped, man. That's getting close to this peak. Adam and I talked about this at Emblem a lot, is that you generally get about 50% penetration rate before it seems to top out. But it seems like with Mr. 703 wrapping his entire stack, or is saying that he's going to, and pushes that over, that'll be a pretty big milestone in terms of like wrapping and vaulting and kind of moving it around.
I think
he will just not arrive to pushing it over, but we will be so close. And yeah, just one or two other guys coming in, wrapping a few, and will push it over. I've been talking with him most of the day yesterday. Yeah, he would just not get to 5K. It was always my prediction that we would end somewhere between 5K and 7K. So I think we got a lower limit now. Now we will see how high we go.
Yeah, I was just going to add on there that just in the past like day or two as well, Boki Puba has put together a script combining all of the historical sales from V1 contract, V1 wrapped contract, V2 contract, and V2 wrapped contract, which is the first time all 4 of those have been combined into one stat that he's looking at. And there's just shy of 300,000 transactions across all 4 of those contracts together, which is just incredible. So if you check his timeline, he's got a link to GitHub with that in there, and the data and everything that's coming in, looking at the collection of all 4 of those contracts together. It's pretty interesting.
Wow, yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. So I'm glad we got to catch up. I'm curious, over, you know, maybe this last 12 to 18 months, while everything's been kind of in a bear market, what are like some initiatives that the V1Punks community has taken on, in terms of, I guess, curating the collection or marketing, or is there anything that really stands out to you or anybody on stage that has been the primary focus for the community during the bear market?
Well, the collection basically has no leaders, and so there is no central steering. And so we have seen a few community members that are building stuff around it. Like we have the Pair Sniper tool and some other tools that are coming up. Because one of the narratives that we are pushing a little bit is, yeah, get that pair where you combine a V1 and a V2 in the same wallet. So somebody actually did build a tool that you can detect, is the V1 for sale or is the V2 for sale, or are they both for sale? And so community members are building some stuff, and we're doing some Twitter around it. But basically, we are not doing any organized marketing or any organized whatever. It is just a community that takes the whole thing in hand. And I think that is one of the strongest points of the V1Punks. We don't rely on any company or on any leadership to do anything for us. It just happens because some community members are ready to build stuff.
I wanted to, can you hear me, Jake? You got me back?
Yeah, welcome back.
It's amazing that basically half the collection's been wrapped. You know, we know from experience, it's really hard to get people to wrap. I think, you know, are there any I'd love to know, are there like a couple of large holders out there that still have the remaining supply unwrapped? You know, how does that break down, Frank, as far as like that remaining kind of 5,000 that's still out there unwrapped? Has anybody looked at that kind of remaining supply?
Well, I don't have that data at hand. Maybe Sean has something about that at hand. But I think most of the major holders are pretty much finished in wrapping. So now we're definitely looking at some smaller wallets, like Beautiful and the Punk, and some others that still have V1s in their wallet, but they say, yeah, some of those say, yeah, but I'm not going to sell them anyhow, so why would I wrap them? So I think the whole momentum will slow down a little bit. So yeah, my upper limit of that 7K, that will take some time, I think, before we get there.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at those remaining ones, there's just over 1,000 that are sitting in the Yuga wallet, right? So those are probably not going to get wrapped. Snowfro has a bunch that I think that we all think are, you know, assume are probably not going to be wrapped. There are some people like MB or a couple other people who have their V1s and they're just keeping them themselves, and they don't have any plan to sell them or anything like that. So they're not planning on wrapping them. So I think that if you're thinking of the wrapped collection as ones that may potentially trade, then I think that you know, between 5 and 7 range is probably accurate. There's, you know, Wilcox, you know, there's still a couple people who only recently realized that they had V1s. They didn't know about it. You know, so we've seen that a few times in the past month or 2 months, where, you know, they discovered a wallet of, I guess maybe the past 6 months, we've seen it a number of times where they found a wallet with like 20 or, you know, on the upwards like 250 or something like that. So those, they're going in and wrapping those as those are kind of coming up. But I think that there's only another 1,000 or 1,500 that I can think of that I know are sort of like on deck to be wrapped at some point eventually. So yeah, it's really going to be sort of a question of how much it gets from here. I've said before that I doubt we would ever see more than 8,000, but I think that 7,000 is probably a more accurate top end on it.
Yeah. I mean, 8,000, 80% wrapped would be, I mean, like that would be the most wrapped, like that percentage was super high, right? And seems very unlikely, especially with Yuga holding, 1,000. Seems very unlikely to get that kind of point. I guess, rising markets, that's when it really comes out, right? When you see if the market were to really run, price really go up, then you see these wallets kind of wake up a bit. We've seen that. So we've seen some, obviously a little bit of rise here, and those 500 from, was it Mr. 703 or whatever? Any indication on what he's going to be doing with those? Has he offered any for sale or anything like that?
Who? I'm sorry. Who is asking if there's any?
The 500 that just got wrapped. Was it 500 that just got wrapped?
It's Mr. 703.
Yeah.
So he's always been selling kind of over the years, little bits here and there. He doesn't sell directly. He's got a kind of an agent that handles his sales for him. But like I bought a V1 V2 pair from him last year. And he's in the V1 Discord chatting about stuff and open about it. So he has somebody that handles it, and he is open to selling them. I don't think he's going to go list them or anything like that. But if I mean, maybe he will. But I think that for the most part, he's dealing with inbounds on it. But he also has almost 200 pairs. I think like 180 some pairs. He's like the third largest pair holder. And I know that he's certainly interested in selling those together as well, to people who are interested. So I think that there will be some distribution of those things that he's wrapping.
Sean, how would you say the narrative of V1Punks has been over the last year and a half? And maybe a little bit deeper, for a while, there was kind of this separation between the V2 and the V1 community. I think that was partly had to do with the original, acquisition of Yuga acquiring V1s. But has this changed over time? Do we see more V2 holders coming in and acquiring V1s, or maybe being a little bit more accepting and not calling them, broken window panes, I think is what the quote was?
I think the narrative has changed a lot, both publicly and privately. I think that there's people who have more positive feelings on V1s that they don't talk about publicly, but they talk about openly in DMs and things like that. I think that a lot of the false, I don't know, I guess a lot of the friction and a lot of the drama and things came from bad information and people not knowing what was going on, and people kind of passing around something they heard from somebody else, or or probably realistically there were some people like pushing bullshit and trying to start fights and whatever else. And I think that also if you think back to when the wrapper was released, like there was a lot of other drama going on in kind of the CryptoPunk world, right, with the noun stuff and 4156 and the IP discussion. There was a lot of stuff happening. So like tensions were very high, emotions were high, and all of these. So it kind of came up in the middle of that. And I think there was probably aspects of one that spilled over to the other and all of that. But I think that the further you get away from that time, level heads prevail. People do research, people dig up what the facts are. They're able to kind of look at those facts with a less of an emotional take. People aren't trying to push narratives the same kinds of ways. So I think that that's what a lot of the holder distribution that has been seen in the V1 collection are people who have V2s that want to pair them up. It's also a great entry point for people who really love CryptoPunks but can't quite afford a V2 and kind of want to feel like they're a part of the community. They want to feel something, right? So I think that in general, things have gotten a lot a lot friendlier. I think there's a much larger overlap between the two communities than there was at that point. I think there's a number of spaces online where both people, both communities hang out together. I think the recent Beeple event in Charleston was a great example. There was a ton of V1 people there hanging out with all the V2 people. There were no fist fights in the middle of the room. Nobody got a beer bottle broken over their head or anything. Everybody had a great time. And I think that that's the sort of thing that we're going to see more of going on. And I think that there's also an aspect to, like, when you meet somebody in person and have a chat with them, it's harder to believe like random nonsense that someone posted about them on Twitter. And so I think that, a lot of the drama came from those kinds of speculations and, kind of shit talking. And I think that all falls away with, when communities are together and people are chatting and, you just see like, oh, hey, everybody here loves punks. So what's the drama about?
All right. Yeah. I always found V1 punks to be in this kind of unique parallel. Because if we remember last bull run, the narrative that kind of sprung up V1 punks was this like historical NFT narrative. It was also kind of caught in line with this like counter Yuga or counter kind of Larva Labs kind of narrative. What would you think, maybe if anybody who's on stage, what would you say the narrative is now? Has that kind of transcended that? Is it more just provenance and history, or is there an identity that's forming around the V1 punks community that is a little bit additional than just the PFP, I guess, itself?
I mean, I think that I don't want to answer every single question, but I don't think there's any consensus on any of that, right? I mean, everybody has their own, any collection with thousands of things, people are going to have their own takes on it, why they like it themselves. You're not going to have any one thing across the board on it, but I don't think there's any real anti-Yuga narrative. I mean, certainly in the V1 Discord, we've been very active in trying to create a positive atmosphere, where everybody is coming together kind of to celebrate this collection that we love, this IP that we love, all of this stuff. And we don't really, spend much time or even allow much time to be spent like just like talking shit about people or trying to like stir up drama. We want to try to keep it positive and focus on the stuff that we love rather than stuff we don't like. And so I don't think there's much of that in the community as far as I see it. Maybe there's some, secret back room or something that's all full of hate. But I think that for the most part, it's more about people who like these cool punks.
That's pretty awesome to hear. Cause I mean, there was a little bit of it maybe in, I don't know, 2022, I guess it's all blurring, from V2 holders and just, kind of backlash that way, and it got a little bit testy. But so it's good to see that that's kind of people have kind of moved on from that and appreciate it for what it is. Yeah.
And let me just like say, I don't want to speak for everybody, and there's always an outlier. There's always an exception for everything, right? But I think that you will find some pocket of V2 holders who hate V1s. You'll find some pocket of V1 holders that will say they would never buy a V2 or something. But by and large, the majority of both communities is neutral / positive on the other. And the overlap between the two continues to grow. And I think that that's, a good sign.
Yeah, that's really positive. I mean, a little bit of controversy doesn't necessarily hurt. Obviously, when Larva Labs tweeted about it and caused that ruckus, that was really, really good for V1 punks, right? It just kind of raised it to a level of awareness. But I think now that we're past that kind of point, we're at a place where collectors can kind of just like what they like, and I think that's pretty cool. But let's go to IPA Cowboy. I know you had your hand up there for a minute.
Yes, I just want to add, first, I don't have a cowboy accent and I don't have horses. But anyways, I want to say, I did feel those tones of anti at the beginning. And, that's what we're at now is a culmination of everybody's hard work. You know, Sean, Frank, Irish, Nuno, everybody, Cyborg, who I see at IRL events, who were out here being friendly. You know, there's sour apples on both sides. And now I can say that I don't hear them no more. That sourness that you used to hear is shunned out by all the positivity. And I think that's the big difference that this community has band together. And like Frank said, there's no real leaders here. It's whoever steps up. And I'm not the type to turn my cheek if someone hits me, but that's why I got friends around kind of like moderate me, you know, because I'm a cowboy, I'm a rebel at heart, so I'm gonna say some shit that's on the opposite end. But what has stood out is the positivity that this community has formed around punks in general. We're just inclusive. We're not, and that's another thing that like I love about this community. It's so diverse. You get people from all walks of life. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think Sean, I think it was Sean who said the IRL meetings. Those tend to make everybody a whole lot softer.
We have
Go ahead,
we have party buses. That's what we have.
Party buses will do it, no doubt about it. Let's go to Nuno. What's up, man?
Hi all, it's amazing to be here in the middle of my family. It's really amazing, and this brings us good vibes. A while, Adam, you asked to Frank, I think so, that what we were doing as community. I think the biggest work and the most important work right now, because we are growing in an organic way, is we go ourselves to in real life events and show ourselves like we are, and we love punks. And I'm saying punks, I'm not saying V1s or V2s. We love punks, and we are here because we love punks. If we show the other persons, other people that we love punks, and they love punks too, so we have a common ground. So the only way is we go up together, and I think this is the most important thing. I can give you the example. I was hanging in people event with Sean, with Frank, with EPI Cowboy, etc., and with Cyborg. In the middle of the street, someone asked Cyborg where was a restaurant, and he ends the conversations telling the people about V1s and V2 punks and normies. And this is the best example. This is the work that we have to do. And of course, we have a Sean that is completely educational, and it tries to educate all the people. We have Ember that was here too with a big bag and tries to focus in that things. We have Frank and Cyborg that made the rapper and bring us together. So we just need to show ourselves without any fights, without any bad vibes, and we will grow, because 100 Ethereum for a cowboy ape is free. If you think a little bit, I think 1 year and a half or 2 years ago, we have the alien sale for 1,000 Ethereum, and our floor went up to 29 Ethereum. I really think in next will we go to the next to that floor, but we will stay there in this time, because what I have seen in the last year in real life events and conference is a major acceptance by the other people, and people right now knows that we the V1s or our history, or some part of people already knows which is the narrative of the punks, the V1s and the V2s. And in the end, V2s never existed if V1s didn't come first, and V1s never made the rapper if the V2s didn't have this big acceptance and this huge value. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I don't think anybody does more IRL events than Frank. Frank, man, you're everywhere, dude. I mean, I'm following you on X, and it's like you and Irish are literally hitting every country in Europe, bro. How do you do it, man? Like seriously, man. How do you do it?
Yeah, you actually have to ask Irish that, because she's dragging me all summit in. But yeah, we did. I think we did like 10 conferences in Europe alone, And then indeed, I did two rounds in the States. Irish and me, we just decided to get some alpha here. We just decided yesterday that we will go to our base of Miami. So you will see us there too. So yeah, it's just keep going, and yeah, Irish dragging me everywhere. So
yeah, it's FOMO. It's definitely, I don't know if you've seen the Simpsons episode FOMO meter. That is literally just me. But yeah, you were mentioning earlier about like community initiatives. I think one that hasn't been mentioned, and this is like a big thanks to like kind of everyone in the V1 Punks community, but in particular Sean Bonner, because he reached out to a lot of people to try and get their punk pairs, you know, to try and like reach out to find people. That is honestly the biggest like help for like people to realize, oh, okay, this isn't just like another project, another collection or a derivative. And people, yeah, I think like it's still good to have educational talks about like what the collection is, but I think like Adam, what you said earlier, like we are kind of a little bit past that as well, that a lot of you know, historical gurus in the NFT space know how to do the research by now, so they will find out because there's a lot of like documentation out there. But that is one of the biggest helps for people to find the pairs. And I think that will, like, there has been, as far as I know, there has been a couple of punk pair sales as well. And there's been a lot of people that have created platforms to find punk pairs. There's more than one. These are not like community members that were paid. They did it in their own initiative because they just loved the collection, and that doesn't happen in the ordinary world. Like, people do not go out of their way to do that without payment or without like some sort of incentive, whereas the incentive this time is like community. And I think that's just massive.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think that which Irish just mentioned is indicative of CryptoPunks in general. I think regardless of which collection you're talking about, both communities are full of people who love punks and build stuff for punks without somebody asking them to, without somebody telling them to. I think that like one of the sites Irish is talking about is called pairsniper.com that helps put those together. That was just built by a community member who wanted to put something together, right? Just recently, we've seen Nifty Knot create punks.wtf, right? Which is like exploring how to search through colors and traits and all these stuff. Again, just a community member found some cool stuff, wanted to build it, put it together. I already talked about Boki Puba doing the data from before, right? So I think that we see this across the sort of larger CryptoPunk community, and it's a really kind of special thing that I don't see a lot of elsewhere. Not, of course, there's always an exception. There's things of it, but I think that the fact that CryptoPunks have for 6+ years now kind of been on their own to do their own thing has attracted people who like that and want to build stuff on that together. And it's really been, I think, helpful in creating such a positive community that does all of this stuff and continues to kind of support itself regardless of what's happening elsewhere in the market or elsewhere in the scene in any way.
Yeah, totally. I just wanted to add, just for context, I do think it's really important to educate on V1 Punks and like continually educate, like continually forever, because literally you've got to let the entire world know. So I didn't want to say we don't need to keep, and the community doesn't need to keep educating. Absolutely need to keep educating. I just feel like in this space, we're kind of, I scroll down the list, it's like I'm hit with punk, V1 Punk purple the whole way down. So I just didn't think we needed to spend 15 minutes going through the history. But yeah, throw it back to Jake.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about kind of like the identity of NFT communities. V1s kind of are a combination of two. They have this like historical kind of OG narrative, but then it also has the punk ethos. And Sean's exactly right. Like, punks have been kind of on their own. And so when you're aware that, there's no other additions that are going to be made to the collection by the owner, it's then, on the community to really figure out what that identity is. And you start to see kind of like what are the strengths, right? I think what attracted a lot of the people to punks originally was not only just this like OG status, but it ended up being a community of very successful founders who went on to build other projects, right? So that becomes like very attractive to others to say, hey, I want to participate in it. This is, of course, in absence of the price as well. So this is when I brought up that point earlier. That's when I was discussing is like, is there any sort of identity that can be easily shown or showcased? And it doesn't always have to be, and it might not even be that situation, but coming from the Mooncats community and some of these other historical NFT communities, you've seen Mooncats really stick up and be that kind of like successful historical NFT brand because some of the community members have kind of gone on beyond what Pondaware can do to say, hey, this is more than just a project. This is a group of individuals that you want to build with or find success with, or just kind of be in some sort of relation with. So it's just something I'm actively looking for because V1 Punks kind of fit in that happy medium of both of them. What's good, Nuno?
I don't have any doubt that V1s will go up big. I don't know when. It's not my concern right now, to be honest, but I don't know when, but I know that that time will come. And just imagine, right now we are in bear, we don't see Sotheby's or Christie's making auctions to V2s, but just imagine, and I think that will be the click when you see a Punks pair being in an auction in a Sotheby's or in a museum or in Christie's. And that, for me, it's much more important than Yuga Labs say something. But if they let this happen, because they that they have some power, that is for me the biggest achievement we can have. If I had 1,000 or 100 V1s and I saw someone giving a V2 to a museum like I saw 1 month ago, and I had the pair, I will offer the V1 to the museum too, because for our future, these kind of things are very important, and this brings acceptance, general acceptance, in my opinion.
Yeah, V1s, it's an interesting take. We've seen, some of the CryptoPunks make it to the different types of museums and kind of follow this traditional or historical narrative. That's something that we want, but is it something that the NFT space and V1s need, right? Do you need that kind of signature from the traditional, kind of art accolades to say, we sign this off as something to be of significance? I personally, I don't know if there's been, or going back to like 2021 and 2022, we've seen some of these, NFT collections sell at Sotheby's, right? Mooncats, CryptoKitties. I think Mitchell Chan's, there was a handful of them. I don't know if it actually brought any additional validation though to the collection themselves. When you go back and look at kind of the sales of Sotheby's in general, it was mostly just crypto people buying it themselves. When I sold Mooncats at Sotheby's auction house in 2021, I think there was like 51 lots. I think only like 30 something of them sold, and then of those, I think there was like 18 buyers, and of that, I think half of those were people who are also selling NFTs in that auction. So I don't know if it's done a good job of kind of doing that validation. Although it is fun to say, right? It's good for marketing points, but in terms of does it push the needle forward, I'm still a little bit skeptical on it. Go ahead, Nuno. Hear your response, and then we'll go to
my opinion is very simple, and I will not talk about CryptoPunks. I will talk about NFTs in general. I don't have any doubt, it's just my opinion, but I personally don't have any doubt that the future will be a mix between traditional art and digital art, because it's all art, and if we need acceptance, we need to be in the traditional place too, because it's where the collectors are, it's where the artists are, and we are artists, we are creators. Okay, CryptoPunks is a collectible. I think more than the art is the provenance and the narrative and the tech. But in the future, NFTs you will see, you start seeing right now many artists making the mix. You buy the NFT, you have the physical, or vice versa. You buy the physical and you have the NFT. And I think the future will be all together because it's all art. So how I believe this, so I really think that the traditional auctions, etc., are very important for our marketing. But most of all, for more normies knows about our history and knows about NFTs and in CryptoPunks and our narrative. So in future, I think it's a win-win if we are there. And we need to be in the museums. We need to be in the physical exhibitions. Okay, we are digital, but we need to be there because it's the place where the people that like art and the collectors and people that like collectibles are. And we are not more in COVID time. People are willing to meet people in real life. So I really think we should be there too. And again, if I had a lot of punks, but I don't have a lot of punks, I have like 15. But if I see a museum,
well, that's a lot of punks to some people.
But if I see a museum that someone offers my PFP and it's my PFP, it's my most important punk. It's not the most valuable that I have, but for me, it's the most important. I don't want to sell this, never. But if I see someone give to a museum my PFP, I will offer my PFP to the museum too in pro of the community because I really think this is the way and the right way.
Yeah, I think, even with, what happened in 2021 and Jake had that experience, with Sotheby's and stuff, certainly getting it out to that wider audience, which I do think in 21 was a little bit maybe too early for kind of wider adoption. Even still, it adds this kind of like validity to well, digital art in general, right? But also to NFTs and NFT projects specifically. Very important. I couldn't agree more that it's only grows in importance over time. Maybe just a little bit early in 21 to reach the normies. I mean, even in Jake, I think when yours sold, they were selling to crypto natives. They weren't selling to 80-year-old collectors who never heard of blockchain before, right? Everything kind of sold to these crypto natives. So they didn't really reach the audience that a traditional Sotheby's or Christie's that we want them to reach, which are these traditional art collectors. I think that'll just come with time.
Yeah, and Jake, one thing I just wanted to add is that I think there's a perspective to consider on that as well. And I don't think that, at least for me, I don't look at CryptoPunks being in major auctions and in museums as what can that do for CryptoPunks. I think that that's probably the wrong way to look at it. I think of it more as this is earned recognition for CryptoPunks, right? It's not about like, oh, what does Warhol get by being in this museum, right? It's like, what does the museum get by recognizing and having a Warhol? And I think that that's the same sort of thing that we're seeing with this. Is it's more about this art world recognizing the importance of these pieces, right? And I think that we're seeing look at the breadth of CryptoPunk derivatives, right? There's no question that this is a massively influential project just in the digital art space, but it's not limited to that, right? There's a ton now of physical, fine artists, traditional world artists who are also referencing CryptoPunks in their work, right? And so I think that what you're really seeing is that this is kind of a genre-defining collection of work that is spreading into all of these different places. And I think that the museums that are, adding CryptoPunks to their collections are recognizing the sort of importance culturally of them, not necessarily, as a like, oh, can we get more buyers this week? I think that that's like a short-sighted way to think of it. I think it's really like more about how this is an important thing on a larger cultural thing that's being recognized, which is nice.
Yes, I agree. Sorry, I agree with Shah, as always. and it's like a stamp for a larger acceptance. I think so.
Yeah, I do think that them having there does bring some credibility. But if we go even maybe one layer deeper to this and kind of unpack it, like maybe I'll ask you, Adam, what do you think MoMA or these traditional museums get on behalf of, or what benefit are they finding of adding CryptoPunks or any type of NFTs to their museum? Is it a charade? Is it all a charade, or is there something? Is there something fundamentally that they're benefiting on behalf of?
Well,
this
we know it's fakes all the way down, man. I think right now the early adopters, look, digital art's been in museums and auction houses for a while now. It's not just with NFTs, but I think they can get some maybe cred as early movers in it. But I'm not an expert in it, so if somebody else on stage has more detailed knowledge on this sort of stuff, love to hear your opinion as well. But for me, it's a little bit of this early mover, but early movers often get their head chopped off a little bit too, right? Which I think everybody on stage would agree. Look, this is gonna happen. This has already happened, and it's already happening. Everybody's gonna get there. It's just a matter of when. But sometimes you get beat around a little bit when you're that first mover. As you experienced in your auction, you were a little bit disappointed, and a lot of people were a little bit disappointed with all those kind of NFT auctions in the summer of 21. But with the disappointment maybe on price or not attracting enough buyers and stuff like that, there was this thrill of acceptance, which I think was important for the whole community.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to it, the financial, expectation of that auction that we participated in, I think that's still the largest kind of NFT auction at a traditional auction house, was very far below the expectations. But socially, I could say, fairly confident that my account grew over 100%. I went from like 2,500 followers to 5,000 after that. And that gave me, personally, the social boost to then go build kind of a long-standing brand within the crypto space. And of course, then the speculators were speculating on the market of all these different assets, right? I think the Mooncat floor went up like 2x, CryptoPunks, all these other ones at the time. It was really, really a fun time. It was a fun time to say the least, but I could also see they were kind of going through their own bearings. The payment for all of the auctioneers who were selling their assets was 30 days to upwards of 90 days. I've even seen some say 6 months, right? So they were kind of still trying to figure out how to go. So it was a fun learning experience overall. But it seems like now those auction houses have begun to pivot or maybe move towards more niche stuff. I saw there was like a glitch art auction, and they're supporting female artists and going through all these different types of niche communities, which is really cool to see, to kind of shed some light on it. But Chris, I'm curious on your take on this. A few years ago, Chris lives out in Vegas with me. We were talking about CryptoPunks and about how iconic they are. Then all of a sudden V1s popped up a little bit later, and it just, it's a big flex. So I'm curious, what's your perspective on the whole conversation of V1 Punks, the provenance, and the community that so far in this conversation?
Yeah, for sure. We have to remember just like how small our ecosystem is and how big of an impact punks have had so far, just on this tiny little segment of internet culture so far. And just thinking back that V1 punks were kind of, even before that, even leading into all of that, into what it became, is just like so impressive. And just to kind of see, when people are going to look back on these earliest days, provenance is just such an important factor. And the fact that V1s have that provenance is just going to kind of put them in a lane of their own. I can't wait to see a ton of these kind of pairs end up in Emblem vaults, V1, V2 pairs being traded off, being maybe time locked or whatever it may be, and just kind of collected over time. So loving it. Love to see the purple on the timeline. Love to see the progress the community's making and how fast it's growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the emblem, shill subtly. It'll be fun to take V1 punks over to different blockchains. Go take V1 punks over to Bitcoin next year. How fun will that be?
Dude, we've had like 5 conversations in the last week about that specific issue. Like all these ordinals people who are like, when can we get the punks over on Bitcoin? Like, it's just a matter of time, right? And it's going to happen probably in Q1 of next year. We're going to, build the tech around that. And people being able to move their punks onto Bitcoin is going to be real exciting. Yeah, Dogfather, what's up, man?
You might be on mute.
I heard Bitcoin and I raised my hand. So really, really love the convo. I mean, huge respect for the V1 community. I was in the Discord very early and I was fading at 1 ETH or so. So big regret that
Join the club, bro. Join the club.
Oh man, so I was at that point in time a bit risk averse doing OTC trades because I was relatively new to the community. Again, big regrets. I need to pick up one at some point. So one question to the V1 hardcore community. So how do you think about the Bitcoin ordinals community who were putting the CryptoPunks on Bitcoin pretty early? So in February, it was basically the first big push for Bitcoin ordinals when Leonidas was tweeting about that. Everyone tried to mint some for free. So that would be my first question. So how do you think about it in general? And then also a bit more in detail. I think the mint on ordinals was very punk-like because it was a free mint, so it was not sold. So it was something like a community project that everyone could inscribe a CryptoPunk for free. And I think this resembles the situation of CryptoPunks in 2017. So that's my two questions to whoever wants to take it.
I mean, somebody else can chime in as well, but I think every chain has a CryptoPunks knockoff, right? There's Polygon Punks and Sol Punks and Tezos Punks and everything. So I don't think that the Bitcoin Punks or Ethscription Punks are any different than that. It's just someone who copied the collection. And I think that at the big picture is that just shows how important CryptoPunks are, right? Because in order for like a chain to be like real with its NFTs, you got to have the fake CryptoPunk collection on it in a way. I mean, I inscribed my punk on Bitcoin as soon as that was happening, just to try it. And like if it's going to happen, I want to do it. And then I've got it. I also have a huge collection of all the other derivatives of my punk that I can find. I think it's fun. I love that kind of rich community to it. But I don't think that it necessarily means anything above and beyond that. I think any of the other chains, even Bitcoin, even the Ethscription stuff, the unique new stuff to that is far more interesting than the copy of something that's happening someplace else and always will be. Like I want to know what what's the cool new thing that you're doing, not just can you do the same thing that someone else did? But at the same time, it's fun. And I think that any new chain that pops up tomorrow, someone's going to make CryptoPunks for it, right? Like it's just, at this point, that's just the default. It's always going to happen. So, take it as that.
100%. Cyborg, what's up?
Yeah, I don't think Bitcoin's built for NFTs, but also where Bitcoin is so energy intensive, I don't think it's the right thing to do at the moment with Bitcoin. I think we should probably wait to shift like NFTs onto Bitcoin when Bitcoin becomes less energy intensive. That's my personal opinion.
Too late, man.
How funny. Look, I will point out one thing though with all these, inscribed punks or the different types of derivatives. I would say at least maybe I'll focus with just like the Bitcoin one. It did feel like though it was this attempt. This is more of an ideological take. This attempt to kind of transport some of that culture over, maybe some of the cultural relevance. Of course, there's always speculation of price. I'm very aware of that, but it does feel like through the inscription ones or the kind of Bitcoin stamps version or the ones that are just like the original punk image and hasn't been kind of edited in any way. It does feel like some of the community of the V1 or V2s end up coming over and kind of hanging out and collecting it. Maybe it's because exactly what Sean says, you just want to have the simple pair of your punks, right? And if there is an original punk holder, right, who owns V1, V2 Bitcoin punks and Bitcoin stamp punks and whatever other ones, right, that does add a little bit of credibility to it in some sense. So there is, I think, a little bit more to it than just, copy pasta, number go up, let's try to sell. Although that's probably the primary motivating factor of it. I think there is some underlying kind of like cultural transfer that does take place there, or at least an attempt to. And I think those ones that do end up getting some of that kind of collectors that come over and collect some of that, they do end up sticking around. Like Bitcoin punks is still around, Bitcoin stamp punks are still around, Ethereum punks are also still around, the ETHscription punks, which are actually doing pretty well right now, right? So they're all still there. They're the non-edited versions of it. And yeah, just that's kind of my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it does push back the just the awareness back to the originals, right? And so just to echo what Sean said there, it's just at the end of the day, it just says how important CryptoPunks are in the history of blockchain and art. I mean, it's just incredible. Really.
Yeah, I think some people get really angry about it, but I don't think there's any real value to that, because it really does, like, you wouldn't be making a copy of something if the original of it wasn't important, right? Nobody's rushing out to make copies of, like, the random bullshit that's selling for like 0.000001 and hasn't had a sale in 3 years, right? You make copies of the things that you wish you had in a lot of ways. So I think that all of those things, even the what was it that we called it back in 2021, like lazy or whatever, right? Like all of those things eventually point back to the real thing, which is great for everybody. I just personally also think that, like, if you're going to go through the trouble of making a collection, why not try to add a little bit of originality to it and make it something a little bit unique. But everybody's going to do whatever they're going to do. I don't think there's any reason to like complain about it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good take. Yeah, the thing about making it unique is that then doesn't become an option to be a pair. That was just something that I had thought about through this kind of conversation. What's up, Chris?
Yeah, so just kind of quick question for whoever was present in the community when Larva Labs bought V2, and just kind of like the whole punks ethos in general. Like, inherently punks overall are kind of counterculture, kind of underground, and then they obviously get bought out by a big box retailer. What was the like boots on the ground kind of feeling of the V1 community throughout that whole process? I don't think I've ever heard it through your guys' community voices.
It was a blessing in disguise, wasn't it, Frank?
Work all the time. Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Okay. Well, yeah, the community was a little bit split, I would say. Definitely the V2 community. There were some that say, okay, this is cool, but there were quite some that were really ready to dump their bags and just walk away, because they didn't want to be bought by a large corporation as you guys. And yeah, on the V1 side, we basically we didn't have that problem, Okay, there are also 1,085 V1s that got transferred to Yuga, of which one is wrapped in my wrapper. Pretty proud of that. They did hide it in their OpenSea portfolio. Pretty pissed about that. But basically, as a V1 community, we don't really care. We know that Yuga will probably never do anything for the V1 community, so we're cool, no problem. We'll build our own stuff.
Yeah, Cyborg, did you have something to add on to that too?
No, I was just saying it was a blessing in disguise for us in some respects. So it meant that the lawsuit got dropped.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that lawsuit. That was a wild time as well.
Who's gonna write the definitive paper on that whole history, man? Because it really was it was really interesting to see how that kind of the V1 narrative took over, and then you got the interaction with Larva Labs, and the try and take down, and all this stuff happened. I do think it would be really cool to document that in a more full way for people in a year, 2 years, 10 years to be able to, remind them of that history, because it is kind of cool and important.
I want to know who's going to play Frank in the movie.
Go ahead. You're the historian. You have it.
I do have a blog post that sort of details a lot of it as it's happening with some of the updates. I mean, didn't go through every single thing to try to make an explicit thing of it, but I did try to sum it up in an understandable way for people at the time, with an update after the sale, because that's when things changed. It wasn't a lawsuit, it was just a DMCA, right? So that's a very simple automatic thing, not necessarily like legal firms fighting with each other, and that's an important detail. It was just a very standard takedown that happens all day, every day on the internet, all over the place, and the setup appeal process on it. It just happened in the middle of all of this other drama, right? And it got a lot of attention. And also it was weird because, they were doing a takedown of their own IP. Anyway, it was a weird thing. But I wrote about it at the time. I actually put together a little link tree recently, just called punk.school, where I try to collect a bunch of the stuff that I've written about it. So if anybody wants to check out some of those pieces, it's all linked there, as well as the NFT history wiki articles that I wrote about both collections are linked on there. So it's a good spot to sort of see all of the brain dumps that I've tried to document.
Sean's definitely the V1 historian to go to, because I've gone through pretty much all of your blogs as well when I was doing my own research. So do appreciate you for that. Is there any other final questions up here? We may just wrap this up unless there's somebody would like to say something. Nuno, you want to say something?
Yes, just that I don't like that subject, because I always remember our lawyer that forgot to send the counter to the MCA, and it goes for 1 month or something like that, and it kill our floor in that time. So I really prefer don't remember that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a wild time. I had Hemba on my podcast last year sometime, and he went through that entire story as well. So sad he couldn't make it today, but he's also somebody to follow in the V1 Punks community. But I do have to say thank you, everyone. This sea of purple is incredible to see. The V1 Punk community is alive and well, alive and kicking, ready for this next leg up. It feels like we're coming out of this bull market. All the floors are pretty much double from where we were. So as we know, it's punks all the way down the board, no matter what blockchain you're on. Same with Pepe's, right? Pepe is all the way down on as well. It's a beautiful site. I don't think it's going anywhere. Appreciate everyone who's here. If you guys don't know, we host this show Tuesday through Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow is our Pepe show. We are featuring Pepe.WTF and Rare Coco. So if you guys like rare Pepes and fake rares, we will be hosting that tomorrow. Make sure that you give everyone on stage a follow, from Sean, Chris, Nuno, Cyborg, Frank, Dogfather, everybody, Praskal, everybody up here. Appreciate it so much, guys. Always feel free to reach out to us. And maybe next time we have this conversation, we'll be selling some punks over on Bitcoin. Adam, any final words to close it up here today?
No, thanks everybody for coming. Really appreciate you guys as always, and always love talking V1 Punks. It's awesome, man. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys in a few months. Until then.
Party boss leaves in 15 minutes.
What'd you say?
Party boss leaves in 15 minutes.
Party, yeah, it's going to be 6 ETH by the end of today. See you guys.
Bye-bye. See you all. Thanks for